we got really good students, right? And so if you want a dose of hope, just hang out with our students. I tell people, and I get to do that.
From the campus of Our Lady's University, this is For Good, Stories from Notre Dame, a behind-the-scenes glimpse into life under the Golden Dome and the powerful stories that drive Notre Dame to become a force for good in the world. Hello and welcome to For Good, Stories from Notre Dame. Today we're coming to you from the reading room in Sorin Hall. Constructed in 1888 and named after the university's founder, Father Edward Sorin, Sorin Hall was the first facility on campus to be designated as a resident hall for college students. President Emeritus Father Edward Monk Malloy has served as a priest and resident in Sorin Hall since 1980 for 43 years. I'm joined today by my good friend and fellow Sorin alum, Shannon Cullinan. Shannon was elected by Notre Dame's Board of Trustees to become the Executive Vice President of the university in July of 2019. In this role, Shannon oversees the operating budget and leads the divisions that are responsible for the day-to-day operations of the university, including campus safety, economic development, facilities, finance, human resources, the Office of Information Technologies, the Investment Office, and University Enterprises and Events. That's a handful. In many ways, he is like the mayor of Notre Dame, keeping this city running. So without further ado, welcome to my good friend Shannon Cullinan, and thanks for being with us today in our old stepping grounds. We each lived in this residence hall for 4 years. Tell us a little bit about your time from 1989 to 1993 in this dorm.
Yeah, I have to say it's interesting. I would refer to this room as the Quint, which had a lot of gatherings here at Sorin Hall. And so I had a great 4-year run, probably just like you. And what I remember are the people. I remember, Will Grannon from Boston, Ryan Brown from Aiken, South Carolina, Doug Vigiano from North Bergen, New Jersey. And as you know, we just got together recently over the Central Michigan game. And so had a great 4-year run, but it's really the people that get you through the best of times and sometimes the toughest. I remember the first year being hard. I don't know about you, but I came in, I was not prepared for calculus, even philosophy. I remember there were people in there who were studying Aquinas, and I'm thinking, I have no idea what they're talking about. And it seems like everybody else does around me. But great memories of monk hoops with you and others, actually, and even your brother, who was not always great to monk, as I recall. The Sorin Talent Show or Talentless Show was fun. Just a great 4-year run. And I'd never had any interest in moving off. For me, I wanted to be here. Yeah,
you were an RA your senior year. What was it like being a resident assistant after 3 years just being a resident in the dorm?
Yeah, we had continuity. Father Steve Newton was the rector for many years, for all 4 years that I was here. And it was a real privilege. I enjoyed it. Football weekends were a little busy at times, but learned a lot about myself, and hopefully was supportive of certainly the freshmen and sophomores. But I lived in a section where I knew pretty much everybody. So, but it was great, and I actually think in many ways it's harder to be an RA today.
Yeah,
I think it's a harder job.
So let's talk about, you're now a parent, a Notre Dame parent.
Yeah.
You have a son and daughter in 2 different residence halls.
Right.
How similar do you see their residential experiences? How has it changed perhaps over the years?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I have one in St. Ed's and one in Walsh at this point, and both great halls. I think one difference is that by senior year, a lot of kids move off, which when we were here, there weren't that many that lived off campus, but there's some things that are the same. Yeah. The hall masses are great. The people are great. They both had roommates that they've stuck with every year thus far. And so, and Father Ralph is a veteran rector in St. Ed's. It's just a gift to my son and that whole community there. He really is. He's special. I think he's 17 or 18 years in. The only thing he can't get straight is that Sorin Hall is actually the oldest residence hall on campus, not St. Ed's, right? He just hasn't quite figured that out yet. But
he does such a great job at brainwashing those St. Ed kids that they're in the oldest dorm on campus.
It was the minims that were in there. So he just, I hope you get that on tape for him. So, but in many ways, similar. Yeah.
You have to be careful now. We could have the St. Ed's guys burning down the main building after that comment. But let's talk. It's been almost you're in your 5th year as executive vice president now, and you had the privilege of starting with a baptism by fire. You came into the job, and months into the job, COVID-19 befalls the campus. And I remember being with you early on when you were, I think it was back in February, trying to figure out how to get our students back from Europe.
Yeah.
As this newfound epidemic was beginning to spread, but nobody really knew what to expect.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, you had to make a decision to basically suspend the semester. You were really tested early on. And tell us a little bit about those days, and how do you think it helped to shape you as the leader you are today?
Yeah, it was 8 months in. So I started in July, and by February, we were kind of beginning to be in the middle of that. One of the privileges is you lead fast, right? Mm-hmm. You step up fast. And certainly Father John and I got to know each other really well, really quickly. And it's nice to have a veteran priest president who has many years of service, who brought us back to mission time and time again. When he came out in May, it was a mission decision, right? Mm-hmm. And so it grounded us in many ways. And my job was, once he had made the decision that we were going to open, was to take the hill, right? Yeah. And actually make sure operationally and everything else that we were ready. And you know how August was. It was a challenging couple of weeks in August. But overall, you needed the people and the culture to do it. I mean, our faculty showed up. More than 85% went in the classroom. Yeah. Our students were really other-centered, right? And my job was to try and anticipate and stay ahead of things, right? So getting shots in arms and things like that and trying to stay ahead of it. But it was, you also got a chance to look at talent in your organization in a new way, because we moved people all around, right? And some people wanted to manage and others wanted to lead, right? And some of them are leading at a high level right now. So in many ways, it was a gift from a leadership standpoint. I wouldn't want to go back there. Yeah.
How do you think it accelerated your learning curve in this role? No. And I think, in my opinion, you earned a tremendous amount of credibility for the way that you learned. Through today, what are some takeaways from COVID that you think has maybe impacted the way you lead? Yeah,
it's interesting. The one, come back to mission. And we talk about it a lot, but when we were in COVID, it was just the reality. When you're making a tough decision, come back to mission. Talent is everything. Yeah. Right. And, you're good at this, Lou. When you raise the bar, sort of create urgency, people can do things that they don't think is possible. Yeah. And COVID was that. Mm-hmm. Things we thought were going to take 18 months took 2 months to do. Mm-hmm. Right. And I asked a lot of people. People like Mike Seaman, I asked him to work every day for a year. Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, Christmas, New Year's, you name it. And he rose to the occasion. So there were extraordinary sacrifices that lots of people made. And I learned about leading, meaning while people were doing the problem solve reacting, I had to be looking ahead, whether that was financially, right, or the health of sort of our students. That was my job. And that has served me well. Yeah. I spend less time on problem solve react every day. And I have great people that do that, and a lot more time trying to think about risk for the institution and where the opportunities are. And COVID played a big role in that. Yeah. And some people are never comfortable making that move. Right. I just, let me manage my little area, and, and we need them to do that. But that was a big difference, I would say. And then culture, if we hadn't gone into it so strong on the culture side, I don't know how you make it. If your community isn't all in on this, it would have been really hard.
It was one of the most difficult times. I certainly, in the 24 years I've been here, in terms of your leadership being tested across the board, and we were under the white hot light because we went against the grain, and there were many other top universities, many others out there that wanted to see us fail because it would prove, them right, perhaps. And so there was a lot riding on this. It was high stakes in many ways, but your leadership and your team really shone through, for all of us in a very special way.
It was everybody. It was, the board was terrific. We were meeting with them every 2 weeks. Yeah. And when we needed to move, they were behind us the whole way. Yeah. And it was a team effort. And Father John was he steady. And we needed it. Yeah.
Who have been your mentors, your role models when you think about, in particular, being executive vice president?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've often thought about who were those leaders that helped me to lead. You're certainly one of them. I mean, I worked for you in Athletic Race for almost 15 years here at Notre Dame.
Sorry about that.
And there was a selflessness between the two of you, right? Because you and I started out in public affairs, right?
Yeah.
Talk about two guys that didn't know a lot about public affairs at the time. Yeah. And then we went over to university relations, which I'm not sure we knew much more about that. But then I worked for you and John in multiple arenas, and John just kept adding to it, right? Yeah. I started out, John wanted to do this Lean Six Sigma, I can't remember what it was, continuous improvement. And it was a blank canvas. He let me do it, but then he just kept adding. It was oversee the landscape group, and then oversee the warehouse, and then oversee transportation and international facilities. And so in many ways, he just kept extending me. But the best part of all that was the relationship capital.
Yeah.
The knowledge, the experience, all of that. But you know the people in the trenches, right? So when you go into COVID, you got a relationship set that you can sort of lean back on. People know who you are. But certainly the two of you, I would say Jack Brennan would be the other one along with Father John. I mean, I didn't know probably until they made me VP of Finance how thoughtful they had been about moving me around the institution. Probably the four of you, right? At some point they gave me a coach, which pushed me every month. Yeah. I'll never forget, I had a coach and I did 10 assessments. I mean, this was like an MRI of everything about who you are and how you work and what you're not good at. It was a very humbling exercise, but then spent a year and a half every month having a conversation with this coach. So yeah, I'd say, you and Jag and Father John and Jack were not only mentors, but pretty thoughtful about my movement. It was a privilege. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you have so much under you now, and you play such a critical role as our EVP. The endowment continues to grow and continues to play a huge role in terms of its impact on the operating budget. Markets of late have been tough. They've been really volatile, unpredictable. Tell us a little bit about the impact of the endowment and your concerns about being so endowment reliant as we move forward.
As you know, Lou, it's 38% of revenue. So it's our biggest revenue stream. I think we're approaching 8,000 endowments. It's not the endowment, as you know, and your team's had a lot to do with where we're at. I mean, the two things that make your endowment larger are the fundraising dollars from our alumni, parents, and friends, which are extraordinarily generous and have been, and then the returns, which have been both good and volatile, right? Yeah. This past year, it was a little over 1%, right? So we're not talking about huge returns. But to your point, a lot of those endowments are restricted. Yeah. So as flexible as we can make them makes a lot of sense. But when you're up 53% in 1 year, you know this. Everybody wants you to spend more out of your endowment, right? Well, then you're down 7 the next year and the next, and you just got to be really disciplined when you have one of those big up years, right? Yeah. And I think we have a best-in-class team. Mike Donovan's in his 27th year, Tim Dozel in his 20th year. And so you have a team that's, one, they're all here for mission reasons because they could do this somewhere else and make more money. And to them, it's family money. This isn't other people's money. But they've been through tough times before. They have seen the black swans that have come and gone, and that helps. That gives you a steady hand on the endowment. But the hardest part is sort of that dynamic between, we're up this year, we should spend more. And then, and when you give a kid a scholarship, it needs to be that scholarship for 4 years, right? So we have to manage the ups and downs. I mean, calendar 2022, stocks and bonds were both down more than 10%. Hasn't happened in 40 years. So you're asking yourself, where's this going, right? Yeah. In the next 5 years. So again, we've got great talent and we got a great board too. That's really supportive.
Your role on the spending rate side is really difficult because it's counterintuitive, as you say.
Yeah.
When the markets go up, we tend to spend, you try to stay between 4 to 5%, right? Yeah. You try to spend a little bit less so that when the markets go down, you can spend more to keep it that fixed income. And everybody's kind of yelling at you from both sides. You're not spending enough, and then later you're spending too much.
Yeah.
You got to be more
Well, the other thing that happened is interest rates went up, I don't know, over 5% in a very short period of time. And so did inflation. So if you're making 8% and inflation's at 5 and you're spending 4, right? You're starting to eat into that principle in some way, right? If you're not thoughtful about it over a period of time. But we've got a really good community, I have to say, between our provost, John McGreevy, who's been a dean. I mean, he really understands the dynamics of all of this. And it's challenging, right? So
you meet on a regular basis with EVPs from the other top universities, probably anywhere from 12 to 20 of them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
What do you think makes Notre Dame's position distinct when you're sitting down with your other EVPs? What are our strengths or our distinctive characteristics?
Certainly the Catholic mission makes me distinct in the room, and it made me distinct during COVID because we went back for mission reasons, and others were managing risk in a little different way. So that makes you very distinct when you sort of go out to the plank by yourself. We're pretty centralized, so we're more probably like a Princeton and an MIT, right, in terms of centralized and how you think about your financials, than some of the others that are very decentralized, like a Harvard, where every tub has its own bottom. And it gives us some ability to optimize in a way that others can't, but they may say, well, it helps us be more innovative in some ways if you make it more decentralized. I think the collaboration's really high here. And I don't, certainly Holy Cross and the mission and the centralization has something to do with that, but we should never take that for granted. And you and I have been to, I think how many campuses we've been to. So we've got a pretty good data set and lots of conversations that we have something pretty special here. And McGreevy, sort of this thinking as an institution vision, I think he's spot on. Yeah. I think we have an ability to do that in a way that is much harder at other institutions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And tell us about the AAA Moody's bond rating and that Notre Dame, and why is that important?
Yeah. Well, we're one of, I think it's 8, Lou, right? 8 large privates that has a AAA rating. And it's more about what does it mean to your balance sheet and your financials, right? It's sort of your investment to debt ratios and a host of other things. It's just a signal to the market, to your alums, your parents, and everybody else of how you manage your money. So every year we send out our financial report for everybody to review, right? And the front end, by the way, has a nice 10-page summary for people that are not financial people. And it tells you about where our financial position's at. I was really grateful to be a AAA when COVID hit. Because when you go out to the banks and get liquidity, guess who's first in line? We are, right? And the board has sort of mandated that from the beginning. And so I'm grateful. It's Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, Yale, MIT, and a couple others that have that rating. And you can get sideways when that rating goes down.
So you inherited kind of a legacy of great fiscal management and prudent budgeting. Now, tell us about access and affordability. It's a huge criticism across the board, for higher ed that that the cost of higher ed is raising too quickly, and that there isn't just enough access, especially for people coming from poor situations. How do you think about this in the context of Notre Dame moving forward?
Yeah, and you know this because you've helped us, you and your team, think about even Pell First Gen is an institution. Where do you want to be with your undergraduate class? And 4 years ago, we were a little below 15%, and we wanted to move it to 20% by, I think it was fall of 24. And now we're at 20%, right, between Pell and first-generation students, which just sort of says something about your institution and social mobility for your class. I mean, the net price for somebody to come here, which is, tuition, room, and board minus scholarship, is around $30,000. But it's never in the Journal, it's never in the Times, it's never in the papers.
And that's gone down over the last several years?
It has, right? Yeah. When your financial aid's going up by more than your tuition, that's what happens. But we haven't done a good job telling that story, I would say, overall. And people should be pushing us on it, right? Where should you be with your Pell Grant? And are they having a full experience once they get here? I think they are huge contributors to our community. We should absolutely want a Pell Grant get on this camping. Right? If you think about it. But we haven't done a particularly good job of telling that story. I mean, financial aid, we'll do over $200 million in financial aid for undergrads this year. When I was here, I think it was less than $5 million. Right? I mean, it's really a pretty compelling story, but there's always more to do. And the endowment, I think we spend 41% on financial aid. All right, larger than most institutions I can think of, our peers for sure. So,
yeah, it's a huge issue, and we haven't told the story well enough.
No.
And it's confusing to most people. So we haven't brought clarity when there's so much complexity there. Yeah. That's something that we need to really focus on moving forward. So you have to make a lot of tough decisions daily. In addition to kind of like being the mayor of the city or the campus that is Notre Dame, you have really tough, you have all the risk management, you have the fire and police, everything that has to do with safety and especially with all the threats that are going on in our society today. This has got to be something that if it doesn't keep you up at night, it has to keep you concerned, to be vigilant. Tell us about how do you prioritize? How do you make these tough decisions and move us forward?
Yeah. One is you have a really good team around you, just like you, right? So to have a Mike Seaman and Gary Kay as your police chief and a Doug Marsh over on the facility side and Paul Kemp and sort of our power plant, which has got all sorts of safety things associated with it, Father Jerry, that's how it works. But as you know, you can't do these jobs if you're going to react to everything that comes your way. I mean, I'll see Mike Seaman 3-4 times a week, comes down to my office. And that means something's going on, right? Yeah. But then I got to go to a meeting 5 minutes later on the endowment or who knows what it is. And so it's just part of doing the job, I would say. And you can't overreact. Father John's really good at this. You know, he's been a good mentor in the sense of what to react to and what not to. And I, my wife will tell you, there isn't much that keeps me up at night. The safety's the big one. Yeah. It's the students and our faculty and staff. Last week, we had a safety talk on one of these national figures. All we wanted to do was elevate safety, right? Yeah. And so it's all about the culture that you create. But it's sort of deciding between what's really serious, Lou, as you know, and what's not. And, I'm fortunate that I've got an extraordinary group of people around me.
So gun violence is on the rise there. We seem to be, everything is more politically charged and society seems to be more emotionally divisive. How do you plan for either tragedies that could occur on campus or threats to the community?
Yeah, we do a lot more of it, as you know. And so once a year, we'll do a big sort of emergency planning effort, which is basically live, right? We're doing a simulation, but we're doing 7 or 8 hours of, and we may do an active shooter.
And nobody knows before.
They don't know what the scenario is. And it's live. There's people in a room that are feeding you what's going on. And we have people in probably 7 or 8 different facilities on campus that are running live, including Father John, myself, John McGreevy, who sit kind of on an executive committee thinking about, wow, we have an active shooter on campus. All right. Are we closing school, right? Who's going before the media? What are the set of messages that we want to deliver as if it's live? And we have outside groups that are observing everything that we do to make us better. And then we do tabletops throughout the year, all over the place, even in our international facilities, right? I mean, we recently had to get students out of Israel. You don't just do that on the fly. You better have people on the ground that can do some serious work with you. And we figured out that, we had to go a different route and we got them out of there in 3 days, which parents, they expect that of us, right? And so it's a little bit of that anticipating as much as you can, right? On a football weekend, we're going from 20,000 people to 100,000 people overnight, right? And there's a lot more going on this campus than people realize, right? Including security and everything else, right? So we want people to have a good time and not have to worry about that. But Mike and I and others, we think about it, it's a work day. Saturday, that's a work day.
So if that's not enough on your plate, one of the other areas that Father John has asked you to assume leadership for is kind of regional economic development.
Yeah.
And that is been earmarked as a really critical initiative for Notre Dame because our fate is inextricably linked with the local community. And it's critical in being able to attract great faculty and staff to the university. Tell us a little bit about your role and why you see that as so important.
Yeah. And I love it. This is one of the favorite things I get to do. And you and I used to work, certainly in the region. People like the Don McNeils, right? Think about Don. He's the first executive director of the Center for Social Concerns in 1983. You're a student on it. Maybe you're a senior. And Don does that for 20 years. Yeah. And you and Don and others were the first to go out, I remember this, to the Northeast neighborhood and ask people, what more could we do? And you got an earful, right? And Don was welcome because he was well known sort of in the community. But it was the Luellas and the people that are still with us today. And they were like, well, we used to have an Aldi's, which you now own that building. We used to have a Goodwill, and now you own that building. And we have no place to come together. And thank goodness for Don and you and Monk that we created a community center there. If we hadn't, I don't think Eddie Street happens. It certainly doesn't happen in the way that it did, right? And the Marguerite Taylors are not champions in the way that they are now. It's a little bit like the Northeast Neighborhood Revitalization Organization. 25 years the thing's been around. It's incredible. So there's a lot of work that was done. And Affleck raised before me got into the economic development probably over the last 10 years. And we finally got a regional plan between 3 counties, right? Which is really hard to do, to get 3 mayors and 3 counties and a host of people to agree on what your economic development plan is. But once you have that and you can convene around it, we have a whole organization, 10 people that make us convene on this all the time. Then the state of Indiana, the Lilly Endowment and others have taken great interest in what we're up to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars that flows into this community. And it's back to your earlier question. What is it that makes us unique in this region? We've got good leadership and we do collaborate, right? And so sky's the limit. And we've gotten smarter, Notre Dame, right? Even some of the assets we have, Compton, give Jack credit. You and I both know where that was originally going to be built. And Jack said, why don't we build it out here with 2 sheets of ice? Because then youth hockey will come here. And it's happened. I think it's like 20,000 hotel rooms or something, Jack tells me. Really smart. Why don't you use the stadium for concerts when you're not using it for football?
Right.
The new art museum is going to be fabulous for our K through 12 kids here in this region. So it's just, and you're right, when we hire a faculty member, half the time we're hiring a spouse or certainly a partner with them. And if they have a tech job, where are they going to work here in this community, right? I'm going to call up Tracy Graham and try and find them a place. But so it's been a gift, and there's some real momentum. You don't get a $3.5 billion EV battery plant unless there's something good going on in that community, right? So kudos to a lot of people that came before me.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I think the momentum right now for this community and being able to attract, in fact, even many of our alumni are moving back. Not just for the 6 weekends a year, the home football games, but they're moving back for half the year or more to reside in South
It's a moment in time that we have got some wind at our backs. And it isn't, you and I both know, we've got plenty of the issues that other communities have. But the collaboration and sort of the planning that's going on right now, it's exciting. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about sustainability efforts here on campus. It seems to be a major thrust for us in response, in many ways, to our students, that we take a long-term view when it comes to reducing the carbon footprint and being better environmental stewards. The papal encyclical Laudato Si is something that is talked about on a daily basis around here. What are some of the efforts you're proud of in that front?
Yeah, Laudato Si, 2015. Can you believe it's been that long? And again, Doug Marsh and Paul Kemp. So they had to put up with Affleck Graves originally sort of setting their goals around sustainability. Then I came in and I just made them higher. Just that, you taught me well. I just pushed them up. So we're trying to get to 65% carbon reduction by 2030 versus 2005. It was originally, I think they were at 60 and I pushed it up, which takes a lot of effort. And so we've done a lot of geothermal wells. And if you don't know how those work, water sort of 300 feet down is about 56 degrees. So when you want to heat in the winter, it's a lot less effort to take that water up in the winter. And it's a lot less effort to take it down in the summer. And we're doing more with solar, believe it or not. The sun actually does shine here in Indiana. We've done a big one with Indiana Michigan Power, and we're going to do one by WNDU here soon enough for people to see it on 933. And it'll be about 1% of our electricity. We think it's important for people to see it. And then we did a hydroelectric facility on the river in downtown. Very unique, very hard project. It's basically water hits these turbines on the river, spins them, and sends electricity all the way up to campus. It's about 7% of our electricity. So we're approaching, I think, somewhere around 48% reduction. We'll need some technology to help us, but it's exciting for Notre Dame. I think we're leading and we're not doing offsets. This is real reduction right now, but we're also growing the campus. So you're growing the campus and you're trying to reduce your carbon footprint at the same time. So
one of the big criticisms about universities is that we start things and never stop them. And one of the questions I think that you get on a regular basis, we do as well, is, belt tightening,
Yeah.
cost cutting initiatives are you doing to be good stewards of our resources? Can you share a few thoughts?
You asked me earlier what some of our differences are. We know our costs. We can at least see all of them. But some of them over the year, we did a budget cut during COVID, that was hard, right? And people have not forgotten that, and some haven't forgiven me for that at this point. We did an early retirement program, and people are wondering when the next one's coming along. I get asked that all the time, where we allowed people to take early retirement, and we took all the money we saved from that and put it over into financial aid. It's part of what we used to pay for the Pell Grant and the first gen, but it put pressure on those units that lost people, right? If you get a preponderance in a particular area, it makes it really, really, really hard. And then on the service side, I give our front level staff credit. There's robotic vacuums in the main building now. That saves from adding headcount. It's not taking headcount away, but it adds, it certainly, you're not adding as many headcount. You don't have to clean your offices 5 days a week, but we have more to do. And McGreevy's been great. Yeah. McGreevy already canceled one program in California. Not everybody agreed with it. And I know he's reallocating money to one of these high priorities in our plan right now. And that's really hard to do in the academy.
I mean, I don't want to take this moment to brag, but I am going to just throw in the fact that, everybody likes to have something named after them around here. And Janita, who cleans our building, and she's just absolutely wonderful every evening. She's been doing it for years. I found out, I think from you originally, that she named that AI vacuum cleaner after me. It's just called Lou.
She thinks that highly of you.
Yeah,
she really
that's
does.
highly of me.
Does.
And so I finally got something named after me. She was really embarrassed when I found out and tried to deny it. But yeah, she is terrific.
She's the best.
We're blessed. And on that note, talk about, you say that our most valuable asset is not the endowment. It's not resources, but it's our people. And people like Janita that takes such incredible care of the main building, and they're throughout this place.
And her son got his education at Holy Cross, and he's about to get a master's. So it's a beautiful story.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about why you keep talking about talent and kind of bringing in people of a zeal for the mission.
I don't, Lou, we've been around here a while. I'm 21 years. I think you're 25. And so I was doing letters last night. I do, letters thanking people for their service here. And I got to a gentleman who's 50 years. Wow. 50 years. I finally said to Holly, Holly, all right, Father John and I are going to see this person. He's not just getting a letter, but we're going to go and figure out what we can do to thank this person. So I think some of it's just exposure of seeing what people do and how well they do it. And COVID was just if you wanted a case for what that looks like, that people would run through mountains for us. Some of our police officers, right, that worked around the clock for us. So it just, I don't know, maybe it's just that I've worked in a few different places, but I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, I want to do it with this group of people. Right. You and I get tons of calls. People, I have no interest in doing this anywhere else except here. And you're right, it's the mission, right? Yeah. The Pete Bavacquas of the world, I mean, Pete could go anywhere. Right. I mean, Pete is here for a mission reason. Make no mistake about it. Right?
He didn't want to be an athletic director. Right. He wanted to be at Notre Dame and serve as AD.
No question about it. Yeah. Same for you. I mean, you could go do a million things. So.
Yeah, but talk to us a little bit about that. This is a time of great transition. Many are looking in and saying, you're turning over a president. Believe it or not, we've had 3 presidents for 72 years. So this change is much more episodic around Notre Dame than other places. And we're turning over an athletic director. We just hired a new vice president for research. There's been a lot of changes in the dean's levels. Our provost is just a year and a half into the job. How do you feel about all those changes? And do you feel bullish about the future?
I do. Though I was thinking about it. You might be the only one I can think of that came in during Father John's presidency. That's the President's Leadership Group. I think you are the only one.
That's why I was afraid you suggested the early retirement. I thought maybe you were trying to get me out.
I'm not kidding. I think you're the only one that went 19 years of them that's still on the PLC at this point. But you and I have talked about this. When we hire, it's mission, high character, high competence, right? Yeah. And if you look at that group of people, I mean, John McGreevy's been here 25 years. Yeah. He's a veteran. Now he's, becoming provost that's a hard job. Jeff Rhodes comes from Purdue. I mean, that's a research platform that's really going to help us. And if you've been around Jeff, he's impatient for progress. I love working with people like that.
Yeah.
And he's connected in DC, he's connected downstate, he's connected with industry. And so I think I'm really bullish, I got to say, on the future here. So, yeah.
Well, I'd say we're really bullish. You know, believe it or not, you're one of the senior leaders now into your fifth year, and you bring, I think, a leadership that is characteristic of Notre Dame. No guile. We may not get every decision right along the way, but you will never be accused of your ego getting in the way. It's always about trying to serve the mission to the best of our ability. And we're absolutely blessed by your leadership. One final question. So as you think about the coming days, months, years, what excites you the most?
I get 7 more months with Jenks. So I'm excited about another 7 months with Father John. I think the strategic framework, if you really read it, McGreevy was honest about where we're not. And I think there's some brilliance in where we can have impact.
Yeah.
Like take poverty. Like for you and I, having worked at the homeless center and other things, we can actually do something about that. Yeah. And the mission alignment it couldn't be better. Yeah. And we've already been piloting this for a number of years in different colleges. So that's exciting in a way that, and you and I have been here, decades now, that you can see a level of impact there that could be pretty extraordinary. And take democracy. I mean, if not us, then who? That's right. Is going to be involved in that, right? And probably the best thing now that I have 2 kids here is we got really good students, right? And so if you want a dose of hope, just hang out with our students. I tell people and I get to do that. My daughter's in the folk choir. I mean, what a beautiful group of people who are going to want to lead at a high level, right? Including our kids. So that gives me great hope. And then the mission, just the lady that sits on that dome, she'll carry us through. No matter the odds, we'll be more than fine. So yeah.
Well, one of the great things that you have been doing together with everybody else is investing in residents' life. So we're here in this dorm, and it was built in 1888.
Yeah.
And just a few years ago, as part of this renovation plan, you came and gutted it and changed a lot of the HVAC system and rebuilt the rooms and modernized it. And so as we think about our residential experience and how distinctive that is for Notre Dame over so many generations of students, let us pray our Hail Mary today in gratitude for all those who work in residence life, the people that are rectors of the dorms, the assistant rectors, the RAs, everybody in student affairs that runs the supportive programs. And let's also offer this for all of our students that live in these residence halls and are dealing with the kind of different struggles in life and building their confidence and their faith to deal with ways that they can become better servants for a world that is deeply in need. So please join in with us. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Take care. God bless. Thanks again, Shannon.
Thanks, Luke.
Go Irish.
Go Irish.
Thank you for listening to this episode of For Good, Stories from Notre Dame, where we explore the remarkable impact of Our Lady's University. In this series of conversations, we offer a behind-the-scenes glimpse into life under the Golden Dome and discuss the innovative, diverse, and powerful ways that Notre Dame strives to be a force for good in the world. You can find upcoming and previous episodes on our YouTube channel, ND Loyal, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Join us next time as we continue to uncover how Notre Dame is impacting the world for good, one story at a time.